In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the fuel pump assembly on this Ford F-350 with the gas engine. The diesel one will be different. We have to drop the fuel tank for this, so let's get started. Let's remove the fuel pump fuse or relay, whichever one you would rather, so that we can disable the fuel pump, crank the engine, and release pressure from the entire fuel system. This will be located in the engine bay junction box or fuse box. This is located on the driver's side of your engine bay, right behind the coolant reservoir, next to the brake master cylinder. You'll want to remove the cap, pinch the two tabs in the front, set that aside. The relay that we're after is all the way in the back. This one right here, the small square black relay, is the fuel pump relay. So carefully we'll have to remove that. It is easiest to do this with some needle nose pliers. Just be very careful not to break it. All right, there it is. Set that aside. Now you want to get in the truck, crank the engine over. It may start, most likely it won't. It'll just stumble a little bit and then it'll just keep cranking. That's how you know you've released the rest of the fuel pressure in the system, and then you can continue. From underneath the side of the truck, right between the bed and the frame, we can see where the filler neck is connected to the hoses that lead to the tank. This is your main filler neck and this is just the vent tube. So we're gonna have to disconnect both of them and slide the hoses off. So let's start with removing or loosening up the hose clamps and then, well, like I said, slide the hoses off. Use an 8mm socket or a flathead, but a socket works better, and loosen up the clamp. Slide that out of the way. Grab the hose and twist it and try to pull it off. Now most likely it won't just slide off, and sometimes it doesn't even, there we go. Sometimes it doesn't even twist just because it's so stuck on there. So we might have to pry it a little bit. If you have a pick, you can stick it gently in here and then spray some oil or rust penetrant, whatever you have that'll cause this to slip a little bit. There we go. That's disconnected. Now we'll do the same thing to this smaller hose and clamp. This one's going to be a 1/4 inch though. Now I have my transmission jack with a fuel tank attachment on it, and I'm gonna put it underneath this shield just to support it. We have to remove the shield to move on, and it is pretty heavy, so it is necessary to support it with something sturdy. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on it. Just like that, and now let's unbolt it. There are 4 bolts on the frame side and some more on the other side. Right in front of the tire on the rear side, where the leaf spring is, you'll see the bolts right up there. They're 13mm, and we'll have to get to them right through here. So at this point, if your support is in the way like mine is, you're gonna have to move it. Similar situation on the front. Here's the front bolt that's on the inner side, right near the drive shaft. This right here is the drive shaft. In the rear, the bracket for the shield is the one that curves like this with 1 bolt on it. All right. Now slowly and carefully lower this shield. Put your fuel tank support back in position and raise it up to apply pressure to the tank itself now. Just make sure you're not on the straps with your support because, well, that's what we're removing next. Just a light amount of pressure to hold it. Now you can start with whichever strap you want, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna start with this one towards the front of the truck. There There we go. Here's the rear strap on the inner side. It looks like someone has replaced this bolt for me, so it's a little bit bigger, but it should still be a 13 millimeter for you. And then of course on the outside on the frame, it looks the same. It can swivel, but I'm going to remove this 13 millimeter bolt. It looks like it's just spinning with the thread insert in there. So what I'm going to do is take out the outer bolt, drop the tank, or attempt to drop it a little bit to put pressure on this, and then unthread it again. Hopefully that works. There we go. Let's drop the tank just a little bit. There, that'll put some pressure on this. Because that bolt isn't coming out for me, I'm gonna have to work around it. So what I'm going to do is lower the tank a little bit. I'm gonna see how far I can go. I will readjust my support so that it's on this side of the strap so that I can then pull the tank down and forward when the time comes and I have to leave this on because there's no way for me to remove that bolt. Typically at this point, just like for the front strap, you would be able to remove this. Hopefully that's the case for you, but for me it's not. I'm gonna have to work around it like I said. This is gonna bend a little bit. It is what it is. Up on top of the tank, we have multiple things to disconnect, including this line right here, which is all the way at the front of the tank. We have a red locking tab, which you can't see because it's here. We're gonna have to squeeze this, or this end of it, push it through. Okay, so that's off. Basically, what you have to do is this red locking tab here is a little bit broken for me, but you have to push it in. And if you look right inside, it'll basically push that in and unlock the connector. Once this is off, let's move to the center of the tank where we have the pump and the rest of the connectors. Take a pocket screwdriver and unlock the red locking tab on the fuel pump connector, which will allow you to unlock the rest of the fuel pump connector. With that unlocked, I'm gonna put some pliers on the connector just because it's really stuck on there. Be very careful if you do this because you can very easily damage it, and wiggle it, pull it out while you press on the center. There we go. Get all that sand out of there. Okay. There we go. I know the green tab broke. I'll show you how to get around that at the end. For now, let's move on to the next one, which is going to be this red one. Same goes for this one as we did for the first one we disconnected. Pinch those two tabs and push the red locking tab in. Now there's one more line we have to undo, and it's all the way at the back of the tank, so that's the back of the truck right there. This one is the same style as the first one that we undid, as well as the one with the red locking tab on the fuel pump. So there's two little red pieces of the lock that stick out. Pinch them together and slide them in. All right. right, got it. Now slowly and carefully lower the tank. I have my fuel tank on the ground. I sprayed some rust penetrant around this lock ring. It is quite rusty. And all we have to do now is take a punch and a hammer, preferably a brass punch if you have one, so it doesn't make any sparks. Tap it counterclockwise until it unlocks from all of these tabs, and then it should pop right off. There it is. Blow some compressed air before the pump comes up just to get rid of all this debris that's sitting here. That way it doesn't fall inside the tank. And pull the pump up. There we go. Now when you do this, make sure that you don't pull straight up, but rather tilt it. Not only so the bucket can drain, but also the float needs to be able to come out. There it is. And then drain the rest of your bucket in here. And there is your fuel pump. Take this O-ring and remove it. We're going to install a new one. We'll clean around where this mounts and, well, install the new one. On your new pump, you want to get your float, and we're going to install it right in this arm over here. It's going to have two tabs that lock it in. So press it, of course line it up with the center, and it should snap right into place. As for its operation, this should be exactly how it operates. Take your new pump, drop it into the tank, carefully of course. You don't want the float to bend. And as you go down, you want to make sure that this tab that sticks out matches up with the arrow that is drawn on the tank. You'll see it, for me it's right over here. And before you press it all the way down, don't forget about the rubber O-ring, the new one. And this is why I waited until the end to put this on, because it's going to keep wanting to fall off. Try your best to get this lined up. And as soon as you do, you're gonna have to hold the pump there and drop the lock ring over. Try to get it started at least. As you start tapping it in, double check that O-ring. You should be able to see it slightly through the cracks of this lock ring. All right, that's locked in. Let's bring up our fuel tank carefully. Make sure everything is gonna slide into position. Of course, don't go all the way up. We need to reconnect everything. At the back of the tank, let's reconnect this line. Make sure it locks in. It did. Over here at the center, let's reconnect the fuel pump. Make sure that goes all the way in and is locked, and then lock the locking tab. Press this larger fuel line down. Now I know I slightly damaged my locking clip, but it still does lock in. And then for this one, I'm gonna have to raise the tank a little bit. Bring it forward. There we go. Now this one unfortunately no longer has a lock, so I'm gonna show you a trick on how you can lock it if you don't have the lock anymore. All you need is a wire tie that you can slide through where the lock was. Obviously this one's a little bit too long, but that doesn't matter. As long as it's the right width so it can fit in there, that's what matters. And then you tie it. Once you tie it, you tighten it up. And now, if you try to pull up, you can't. It's locked. So at this point, you would just cut the excess, and boom, you got yourself a lock again. And lastly, there was this line at the front. Plug this in again. This lock is okay. So now we can keep going up with the tank. Careful as you raise this tank, you don't want to pinch any lines, you don't want to damage anything. Make sure the filler neck pokes through where it's supposed to. In my case, I have this strap that needs to line up again. The torque on these bolts is 30 foot-pounds, the ones for the straps that is, and I'm just going to torque them as I install them just because it's easiest. All right, let's get the front strap on, slide it into position, and I have the bolt that goes on the frame side ready to go, so I can start it on and make sure it doesn't fall off. Might as well tighten it up and torque it. And on the other side, bring the strap up, start the bolt in. And if you can, torque it. I say if you can because it is fairly tight up here between the exhaust and the drive shaft. All right. And when it comes to the rear bolt on the rear strap, can't do anything about it because it never came out. So I'm gonna leave it as is. Now you can lower your fuel tank support. And let's get the shield back up. Line it up and start the bolts in. Get those nice and snug. If you're doing them by hand, about 1/8, at most a quarter turn after they bottom out. And now the bolts on the inside towards the middle of the truck. And we'll do the same to the one that's in the rear. Remove your support. Underneath, we'll make sure that everything is in position. It looks perfect, so let's reconnect the filler neck. Let's get the smaller hose reattached. I have the hose clamp ready to go. Push it in until it's bottomed out. Get the hose clamp in position, and let's tighten it up. All right, that's getting snug. I'll give it a little extra, and that is plenty tight. You don't want to over tighten these because they do strip out very easily. Let's reconnect the main filler neck hose. There we go. Get the hose clamp seated or lined up, tighten it up. Same goes for this, snug it, give it a little extra to squish that hose, and that's plenty right there. There we go, that's reconnected. With our job done, we're ready to put the fuel pump relay back into its slot. Remember, it's that one right there. Don't put it in a different one by accident. Slide it down, make sure the pins line up. And push it all the way in. Take your cover, put it over, and make sure it locks in. Now we have to prime the fuel system. So what you want to do is put the key in the ignition, turn it to the on position, wait a few seconds, turn it back off, turn it back to the on position. This primes the fuel pump, gets fuel through the system, through the lines, and gets all of the air back out through that return line. We'll do it one more time, and then we'll crank it and start it. All right, here we go. There we go. It took a little bit and it stumbled, but that's okay. All the air came out of the lines. At this point, you can let it run for a little bit, check for leaks, take it for a road test, and there you have it. Job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.